This is Fat to Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Welcome to episode 18 of the Confidence Chronicles. This one will be your guide to quieting the inner critic and embracing the inner ally. In the last episode, we tackled body acceptance and how it helps overcome emotional eating and build a better body image. During that episode, I briefly touched on the concept of your inner critic and inner ally. Today, we're diving deeper into this topic and exploring our inner voices. Let's get to know the inner critic and inner ally. This is such an important topic, especially when it comes to rebuilding your relationship with food, your body, and yourself. And it is one of the key components of Fat to Fierce. So to begin, let's imagine a conversation happening inside your head. You know what I mean. The internal voices that whisper, or sometimes shout, comments about what you're doing or not doing, how you're doing, and anything else. All the thoughts you think and say to yourself and about yourself. All the things you're believing without questioning if any of it is true, accurate, or even yours. Because yes, sometimes we're hanging on to thoughts about ourselves that weren't ours to begin with. They were passed down over time. Now, many of the thoughts can be kind, but for those of us like me, most are not. If you were to take an inventory of all your current thoughts that you have about yourself, so all the sentences you think and say about yourself on a daily basis, are they nice or are they nasty? Are they helpful or are they harmful? Do you remember episode 12 about the environment and how your surroundings impact emotional eating? In that episode, we talked about all the messaging coming at you, including the people you listen to. Guess what? Your inner voices apply here. So here's why this topic is so important in Fat to Fierce. When you're highly critical of yourself, it will impact the way you feel about yourself. When you judge yourself harshly, it impacts not just how you feel about yourself, but also how you treat yourself. Feeling bad about yourself will ultimately lead to actions and inactions that keep you stuck in a rut. It's like having blinders on. You keep walking in circles, repeating the same unhealthy patterns that hold you back from achieving your goals, like overeating, for example. And then you miss out on the opportunities and positive actions that could help move you forward. You know, all those things we tell ourselves we want to do to feel better, we just end up not doing them. So instead, there's more judgment, fueling the critical voice and keeping you in the cycle. When I used to speak nasty to myself and repeat all the ways I was messing up, especially overeating all the bad food, I felt frustrated and hopeless. How do you think that helped my goals? It didn't. It kept me stuck on what I refer to as the island of despair, which is not a fun place to be. Now, what I'm describing here is the aftermath of the inner critic. When we leave the critic unattended, he, she, or they can wreak havoc on our lives. And we all have that inner critic. But guess what? We also have a powerful inner ally waiting to be heard. So let's explore how we can quiet the critic and embrace the ally, specifically to overcome emotional eating, build a better body image, and just feel better about ourselves. Now, I started with the inner critic because, unfortunately, it's the more common voice for most of us. The inner critic is that voice in our heads constantly judging our bodies, our food choices, and even our self-worth. The inner critic loves phrases like, "You shouldn't have eaten that. You should know better. You look terrible in those jeans." Or, "You'll never be able to stick to this." Oh, does that sound familiar? Yeah, for me too. I also refer to these phrases as fat mentality thoughts. Now, in episode 2 of the Confidence Chronicles, I shared more about the shift from fat to fierce, why I chose that name for my program, and the difference between fat mentality and fierce mentality. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, I highly recommend it, especially after listening to this one. As a quick recap, fat to fierce is a shift in perspective. It's about changing the way we see ourselves, feel about ourselves, and treat ourselves. Because regardless of what you're working on, feeling empowered, worthy, and confident is much more effective than the opposite. The inner critic thrives in fat mentality, fueling emotional eating and hindering a healthy body image. And it can look like this. So when the critic attacks our food choices, we might feel ashamed, leading to emotional eating to numb those feelings. This is the shame spiral, and it is a vicious cycle. The shame spiral is what keeps us repeating the same negative behaviors, like self-sabotage. The critic might push us towards restrictive diets, which will backfire, leading to cravings, binges, and more self-criticism. And the constant judgment about our bodies can make us feel disconnected and dissatisfied, triggering more emotional eating for comfort. Fun times. Not. But here's the good news. In addition to having an inner critic, we all have an inner ally waiting to be heard. It's just that the critic has been the star for a long time, without any rules or management. The critic has been running the show, unchecked, creating chaos and negativity. But you are in charge, and you can learn to quiet the critic and embrace the inner ally. So let me paint a picture for you. I often imagine my inner critic and inner ally as characters in a play. My inner critic had center stage for a long time. The spotlight was directly on her. She was the loud, disruptive star, often with a bullhorn. Think of a total diva demanding attention with every word. Her statements echoed through the theater, leaving me feeling small and inadequate most of the time. Now, my ally was off stage, behind the curtain, peeking her head out, waiting patiently for her part. Just imagine a calming presence, a warm smile radiating from the shadows. She's the understudy who was waiting patiently for her chance, ready to offer support and encouragement. Her voice is gentle and reassuring, a soothing balm to the harsh words of the critic. Now, you might be wondering, why would I even want to keep the inner critic around? Isn't silencing her the ultimate goal? Not exactly. The inner critic, while often harsh, does serve a purpose. Think of the critic like a fire alarm. Annoying when it goes off at 3 a.m., right? But ultimately, it's there to warn you of potential danger. The critic, in its own way, is trying to protect us. It might point out flaws in our plans or warn us of potential pitfalls, even if it does so in a way that feels like a personal attack. And sometimes, that critical voice can push us to improve. But here's the key. We don't want the fire alarm blaring all the time, drowning out everything else. We want to create a healthy balance. We want to learn from the critic's warnings, but not be ruled by its negativity. And that's where the inner ally comes in. The calming presence, the supportive understudy. The ally can help us interpret the critic's messages in a more constructive way and offer encouragement to move forward. So the ally encourages self-compassion after a setback, reminding us that everyone makes mistakes. It helps us appreciate our bodies for what they can do, fostering a more accepting body image. The ally guides us towards making mindful food choices that nourish and energize us. Together, the critic and the ally can be a powerful team, helping us navigate the world and reach our full potential. But remember, you are the director of this play and these characters. You get to decide who gets the spotlight and who goes backstage for a bit. So how do we do this? How do we turn down the volume on the critic and amplify the voice of our inner ally? Here are some tips that have been helpful for me and my many clients over the years. Want to play a little bit of private investigator here. And what I mean by that is we want to identify the critic's voice. Get familiar with the tone, volume, and sound of your inner critic. What or who does your inner critic sound like? Notice the self-talk patterns associated with your inner critic. And then identify the ally's voice. Get familiar with the tone, volume, and sound of the voice of your ally. Who or what does your critic sound like? And the same thing here. Notice the self-talk patterns associated with your inner ally. My inner critic sounds very different from my inner ally, which I've explained a little bit in this episode. My critic is very harsh, very loud, sounds very strong, where my ally has a much softer voice. It's more calm. It's just a more calming. It's also strong, but it's just calmer, more positive. I don't know how to. It's more of a whisper, where my critic is a little bit more of a shout. That's how I can tell the difference between the two. I got intimately familiar with what each one sounds like. And once you're familiar with the voice of your critic and your ally, you can start to challenge the negative thoughts. So when the critic attacks, question it. Is it helpful or hurtful? And here is my favorite question. And I have probably shared this in episodes before. Maybe not. I don't remember. Here it is. What else could be true? I mean, really, write that down, okay? This is the most helpful question. The most helpful question. So anytime a negative thought comes and you question if it's helpful or hurtful, and it's hurtful, what else could be true? And try reframing with some kindness. Rewrite the critic's message in a kind and supportive way, using the voice of your inner ally. So again, this is why identifying the voice of your inner ally is so helpful. And then repeat these messages to yourself daily. That's going to help you build the kindness muscle. What this is going to do is it's going to help to balance out the critic and the ally. And so then you're going to get used to hearing both of them And then you can start practicing listening to your ally more often if that's what you wish to do. And some other ways, some other tips to help move this along is to practice gratitude. Take time each day to appreciate yourself, your body, for all it does for you. And prioritize activities that nourish your mind, body, and soul, like spending time in nature, taking a relaxing bath, or connecting with loved ones, reading something inspiring. Remember episode 7, Embracing Joy? I know I have referred back to a lot of different episodes in this one. They're all important, and hopefully you can kind of see how all of this stuff is connected towards building that path towards self-love and overcoming emotional eating, creating a better body image, and just feeling better about yourself. Okay. Journaling was really helpful when I was getting to know my inner critic and my inner ally. I would write out all the critical thoughts I was having and ask myself that question: what else could be true? That's how I started getting familiar with and listening to my inner ally. So here's an exercise that might be helpful. Spend 5 to 10 minutes writing down your internal self-talk. Set a timer on your phone. What are the dominant voices? Are they critical or supportive, harmful or helpful? Notice the situations that trigger your inner critic and the language it uses. Take a deep breath, then ask yourself the questions. What else could be true? What do I like about me? What's one positive thing I can say about myself? What's one compliment I can offer me? Write whatever comes up and notice what's different. What feels better? Use those answers as momentum to continue rebuilding the relationship with your ally. Remember, a positive body image and mindful eating go hand in hand. When we feel better about ourselves, we're more likely to make healthy choices that nourish our bodies. By quieting the inner critic and embracing the inner ally, you can begin to break free from the cycle of emotional eating and cultivate a more peaceful relationship with food and your body. It is a journey, not a destination. So be patient and kind to yourself. To get more support while practicing this, head over to amyenglishcc.com. You can get started today with the self-paced program or book a discovery call with me to explore private coaching. All right. Thanks for joining me today. Remember, you are worthy of love and respect, just as you are. Until next time, have a great week. Are you ready to take control of your eating, embrace your body, and boost your confidence? Then let's get fierce. Start your Fat to Fierce journey today. Go to amyenglishcc.com for more resources and to book your discovery call.